Welcome back. Happy Monday. I'm Alek Dincoff, chatting with Steve Todd, founder, creator of opensourcedworkplace.com. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Alek. Doing well. Just back and forth from London, but doing well in this cold Monday evening in New York City.
I am ready for spring. It's right around the corner. I can feel it, but I'm glad you made it back safe.
Thank you.
Oh man! So for the audience watching, we took a week off because Steve was traveling. So this is a little bit out of sync here, but we're getting back into our groove. So speaking of which, since we've missed an entire week, what is new with open sourced workplace? Has anything happened? I know when you travel abroad, you are busy. You are go, go, go. So I'm not sure how much time you've had, but we do have 2 weeks that you can fill that gap.
And you'd think I'd have 2 weeks of information to give you, right? But to be honest, my time in London, I was just totally absorbed in my day job. Given the time that I was there, the time that I arrived, what I had to get through while there in London, I really didn't do a lot. My last trip to London, I did pack everything in. I did try to do everything, and I don't think that was good for me, my own health personally. But anyway, it's this time I sort of made the decision that I'd go and I would do what I had to do, but I really didn't do a lot on open sourced. On the weekends, yes, I posted a lot of content, some really, really good stuff. There's an article we posted yesterday. There's a book review on why we sleep, which gets into the science of sleep, science of the need for sleep, and it's a tremendous article. But no, it's just keeping everything ticking over. New articles, co-working locations. We're over 1,700 co-working locations are now in open source workplace, which is a phenomenal effort. Whenever, probably 10 days ago, whenever we last spoke, it was maybe around 500. So really, really impressed with the folks who are working hard to get all the locations on. And it's global, so it's US and obviously everywhere around the world. So every day I see new countries coming online and information or opportunities for co-working locations being brought onto open source workplace. So I'm very excited. I have a number in my head that I want to get to, and it's a lot higher than where we are right now. So I think it's a really good tool, and it's going to be a really good opportunity to bring people to open source workplace by adding these locations. So yeah, no, it just keeps ticking over. Really excited though.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm excited for you. So if we can dive in a little bit, do you want to share anything that you accomplished while in London? If you weren't focusing too much on open source, is there anything that we should know about that either piqued your interest? You thought, man, that's interesting, I should share with our audience.
Yeah, no, there was a few things that actually, and you may recall, because we had a conversation one time when we were talking about the difference in the quality of buildings between London and New York. And again, this is just a reminder as I toured a number of locations in London, just a reminder of how great the buildings are, the facilities and the standard they're building to. Sort of brought home again. And the couple of things that really resonated, and we're going to get into it a little bit later, but when we talk about designing locations for employees and ensuring employees have an input, so they always feel they're part of the solution. They're part of addressing how the design and what a workplace should be. And we had an opportunity this time to actually take some employees around different options that we have in London. And it was really insightful to see their feedback, insightful to see their passion. And it's, whenever you work in real estate and you're trying to think about workplace, you're trying to think about design and what's important. Actually, whenever you sit down and you talk and you listen to employees, they point out so many nuances that you don't even think about, you didn't consider. So it was really, really insightful and really, really worth the trip, time and effort to actually go and get that input. And there was so many little things, as I said, little nuggets that come up that just resonated. And yeah, it was really, really good. And again, I know we're going to touch on it a little bit just now, but again, it's all going back to the importance of workplace and what it is for employees and how passionate and how much employees care about the workplace. But yeah, that was the main thing, my main takeaway. from my trip.
Very good. Yeah, if employees don't care, then that's an issue in itself, right?
Yeah, and
So
it's also that they do care, and it's also making sure that they know you listen and you then deliver based on what they say. So that's a lot less on us right now. So
it shows feedback is heard, and it's very
exactly.
good for someone to feel heard, or at least perhaps understood. Maybe it's not, their idea is not perfect, or their feelings won't help change the course of the organization right now, but it's good to at least know that someone's listening.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, there is an article recently read by myself on Open Source Workplace, How to Design an Office for Employees. It sounds like it ties right in with what you've been doing, which is really great. It brings up great ideas on how to get employee feedback about office design, whether it's surveys, focus groups. They even talk about one-on-one interviews. And it sounded like you met with and spoke with lots of employees. Now, specifically, have you had any experience with focus groups, one-on-one, or surveys in the office when it comes to employees giving feedback to office design?
Yeah, and it's we've often talked about which articles have you written, Steve, or which articles you've been a part of, and this is obviously one that's sort of very close to me because it's something that I really believe. I really believe in understanding and get to know employees, getting to understand the different functions and the tasks that employees do take, what they do in the various offices. So, if I think about the sort of locations I've been looking at and working with over the last year, what I've got planned in the next year or two to come, they're very different locations, very diverse very diverse business units, but also culturally, going back to the workplace spirituality we talked about last week, right? You have to embrace the various cultures. So how do you do that without actually going and asking employees their thoughts, views, and opinions on the workplace, on what they need, on what you need to provide to them for them to be their most productive? And, there's various tools out there to do it. And sort of the journey that I've been on is sort of since probably 2016 is through surveys, asking employees what makes you productive. In Open Source Workplace, we have a lot of the questions that I sort of include in those surveys. Like just today I put out there, what does the impact of drinking water have to your productivity? So we're trying to sense what is really important to employees that actually makes them productive. We previously asked about clean air, access to daylight, outdoor space. These are the things that are really important whenever you're starting to think about planning a new location. What are the attributes that you have to look at when you're looking at a building, and also then too whenever you're designing that building? And that's the first thing where you get at the sort of the macro level, and then you have to start drilling down into the sort of individual business units to understand those. So how do you do those? And a strategy that's worked really well for us is the focus groups, ability to break focus groups into different departments, to understand the different departments, how they work, how they spend their time. Do they want enclosed? Do they want open space? Are they introverts? Are they extroverts? What color inspires them? What textures and looks and feels do they want their own department to be? Because an HR, a finance, a technology department all look and feel different, and should look and feel different, because the functions, the task, and what they do on a day-to-day basis is so different that you actually providing them with an actual environment that actually complements their processes and their work really will provide them with the ability to be very, very productive. So focus groups allows you to get to that sort of level where you can do that sort of engagement with a group and understand them more. And then obviously interviews is where you get down to the one-on-ones. So there'll be aspects and people within those groups where you can really get to that individual level and understand, okay, so how do you spend your time? What is the task? What is the computer or software that you use that is critical to what you're doing? But also, how will that be changing over the next couple of years? Because while you're designing a location, you have to also think about, okay, when is that location going to go live? And how will those jobs be changing? Or the technologies be changing? So that whenever you're designing for that flexibility going forward. And that's bringing all that information together and putting that together so that you can get a better understanding. And the real critical thing is whenever you collect all that data, you synthesize it and you put it together into almost like a scorecard kind of thing, where you can go back to the business and go, here's what I think I heard you. Is this what I heard? Is this right? Is this accurate? So that basically what you're presenting to them is a visual of, this is how they spend their time. These are the functions and the tasks that they do. These are the things that they've identified as the key things that they need. This is the look, the feel, the textures that they want to feel and experience within the workplace. This is the technology that they need to really be successful in today and also tomorrow. And you basically get them to buy into all that. And then you take that and you give that to your design team so that whenever they are designing a space, they know and they feel and they see what employees to be. You know, and the fortunate thing I actually have in my current position is we have the trust of the organization to allow us as individuals, as a real estate team, to do this ourselves. You can bring in a third party who are going to be fantastic at running these different things. The difference is when we're talking to these groups, they know Steve, they know the other team members, right? We're people who we see each other in the hallway, we know who each other are, and we also know the nuances, the culture of the company. And you know, whenever we see that how people spend their time, intuitively, we can sort of see right through, well, that's why you spend your time. So from a technology department, a software department, or a developer, he's going to spend all his time at their desk because that's where their computer is, that's where their screens are, that's where their technology is, that's where their, you know, big servers sit, because they can't just pick up a laptop and walk somewhere. And those are the sort of the nuances that we just see straight through. So it's that's sort of my approach to how I think about workplace design, how I think about getting to understand how you can design a workplace for your employees. You have to ask your questions of employees. You have to reiterate and go back to them and say, this is what I sort of heard from you. So that day one, when they walk into that location, each individual feels one little aspect that I had a say in this, I had a say in that, and they did this and they did that. And that's where you really get people to buy into a workplace that's actually built and designed for them.
Very good.
I know that was rather long-winded, but it's really is a subject that I'm deeply passionate about. It's something I live and breathe every day. And I think that the more and more people that can sort of, you know, do this and see these things. And that's why obviously I wanted to publish the article. That's the reason why I put all those questions up there on open source, because these are tools that are not that complicated. But if you had a little roadmap and you're able to walk through, I believe almost every organization can do this for their teams. You know, I'm just in the back of my head, I've almost got, so how do could I put a video together to actually illustrate what these focus groups look like? How do you run these focus groups? What do you present? What are the color textures, and how do you do those things? Because we probably run with like 10 activities that we do for these different things to come up with this. And some of it is, you know, it's getting people on their feet and go and put, you know, dots on different images. Sometimes it's just them sitting and drilling through a spreadsheet, which is really boring, but the insights and the information that comes out of that is so helpful.
Very good, very good. It goes from an employee thinking this is where I work to this is my office.
Absolutely. And, you know, whenever you take that, so when you take employee engagement to employee satisfaction to productivity, first you have to feel belonging. First you have to feel part of it. And then from there you get the buy-in. When people feel that comfort, when they feel that they're in their environment, then they start to relax, then they start to feel more engaged, they get more productive and then more collaborative. Absolutely.
Very good. Something stuck out when you were speaking there. You try to look into the future as well and try and plan to make sure that in a few years, they're not going to be needing new arrangements, adjustments, things like that. My question is, since future proofing is hard, depending on the area, how far do you typically look into the future?
No, it's a great question. And it's one we tussle with internally. And sort of we think about, you know, because it's when you're planning real estate, you sign leases. Usually leases are 5, 10, 15 years. So you're making a big commitment to a location and a city, right? But then when you get into design and you're thinking about, okay, what needs to happen there? How far ahead do you look? Within the organization, I know my headcount is going to be 3 years from now, but that's not to say tomorrow there isn't going to be some M&A activity or something else or some other decision that sort of take that and spins that. So we always try and think about sort of the planning ahead. What's that going to look like? So we are making strategic decisions. But when it comes to actual design, we got to design for flexibility, right? So what is the floor plan, or what is the actual infrastructure that we can put in place that gives us maximum flexibility? One little thing is like a raised flooring. A raised flooring allows you to move desks around really easy. You pop a floorboard up and you just unhook your desk, your infrastructure, whatever that is, you know. And I say desk because who knows whether down the road we'll be using desks. Maybe we'll be wearing glasses, sitting in a room, and away you go. Who knows, right? But in essence, these are the things that we're trying to sort of to understand. So, you know, we look at think about desks, and we think about monitors. We're talking with vendors. Okay, what are your plans for not just 2-3 years from now, but what is your development? Where are you going to be 5 years from now? Because with some of the projects that we're working on, they're going to go live in 3 years. So I'm designing today for something that's going to go live in 3 years. But is that going to be out of I don't know, out of trend, whatever it is? You know, technology's dead, null, void, because, you know, all of a sudden somebody's come up with these really cool glasses, or come up with these ways you can do your minority report on a glass. Who knows, right? And we have to accept that someday it is going to be that. When it's going to be like that, I just don't know. So we work very closely with vendors to get an understanding of what they're manufacturing, what their technology lead is, and what they're actually trying to do with those things. So it's really forethought in mind when you consider the amount of investment that goes into a real estate. Not just, you know, you look at what you pay in a real estate, but you take a 10-year lease term, you talk about the capital investment you're going to make, and also what you're building into those. It's also the people you're going to put into there as well, right? So it's that whole bucket that you have to really think about.
That's difficult work because the future is far away and who knows what's going to happen. But that's why
it's great work. It's great work, you know, and it's, you know, that's the beautiful thing is, and it's the one thing you have to remind yourself every day that is you're never going to get it right. But it's like, how close can you get to being it right? And how do you build in flexibility so you can pivot? How do you build in the ability to test, right? You know, we all know about the A/B testing thing that you do with products and so on and so forth. But how do we do that? How do we do that testing on the spin and be able to understand and identify quickly what works and what doesn't work, and be able to replace and substitute out and do changes? You know, why is that one conference room being used way more than another one, right? Those are just little things you just have to be able to understand as well.
Very good. Very good. So it depends on the business. You have to get a really good feel for who and what you're working with. Do you ever do follow-ups? Like 5 years, 10 years? You do. Okay. Would you care?
Yeah. No, so you're sorry. You're nodding, and you're asking, and I'm nodding. So you're getting my feedback. No, absolutely. It is one of the most critical things whenever you are designing and building a space, to have a pre and a post occupancy study. So we do annual surveys. So the annual surveys we benchmark against what makes people productive. So what teams have told us make them productive. We benchmark all those different things. So for example, right, a location tells us the water is really important to them. Okay, so the next year we go, how are we as providing a service to you on your water? How would you rate us? And we do that across all those different attributes. So every year we are able to understand how we're scoring against all those different things. And then obviously you have a before and an after you do the design phases. So you can actually see, okay, what is the improvement? And then years after that, does the result maintain? Is it still keeping that same high level? Because inevitably you find a big uptick in the facility score whenever you roll out a new location, because everyone's excited to be in a new location, everything's shiny and new. 12 months later, when you forget what the old place was like, and all you remember is all that shiny and stuff now doesn't look so quite shiny and so new now. So how are people scoring? So we keep that very close eye on that, and we keep all those metrics, and we report on those metrics. So whenever we're evaluating a location, we're talking about business planning, we're talking about all those things, we pull out those attributes. So what are the things that, you know, the employees told us were really important, and as a service provider to those customers, how are they scoring us, and what are the things that we need to work on? So we look and we evaluate all those different things as well.
Because if you give an office to a bunch of employees that seems so very odd, different, original or unoriginal, and they love it and they're more productive, then you hit the jackpot. So I could see it's very different depending. That being the case, what has surprised you most, whether it be about the surveys you received from feedback once the job's done, or you mentioned when you're working with employees, maybe a bit of a focus group going on, there's details they say that you completely missed. Has anything just surprised you to the point that it sticks out in your brain to this day that you'd like to share with our audience?
What does come over and is so apparent, and it's not that it shocks or surprises, but how much everyone cares about their workplace. It shines through. Everyone really speaks highly of the role that they do. They take it really serious. And again, this may sound like really elementary, but actually what I'm saying is because it comes across how much people care, what they do, what their job represents in the company they work for, and also how important that workplace is to them and how much they want to do the best that they can. That's what shines through, and it continually shines through, be it no matter what location I'm in, what country, what city, what office, it shines through. And people are just looking for people to listen and provide them with what they need. And that's the one thing that I would say is absolutely common. I mean, there's the obvious things that everybody wants, and the great coffee is always the obvious ask that everybody wants. But that's the one thing that resonates with me, how much people care.
Very good, very good. Well, hey, that makes the organization. You know a business is going to succeed or it's doing well or it will be there in 3 years when your plan is done if its people really have a backing for it. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, Steve, I appreciate you showing up here on another Monday. Unless you have any final thoughts for me, I'm going to wind us down.
Okay, just one question for you. So what are the podcasts going out this week? Do you know what they are? What articles are going out this week? If you don't worry. I'll put you on the spot. I know.
One just published today. One published today, Monday. So if you're seeing this on a Wednesday when this is released, 2 days ago. And I think it was 5 reasons your organization needs to develop or implement a WFH policy. I do believe was the article published today. Coming up tomorrow, so viewing this video, it would have been yesterday. Not off the top of my head, no. I'm not 100% sure. I have a list of everything that comes out and when, but so everyone watching knows it's Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. This video is scheduled to air Wednesdays, usually Wednesday morning, so you can have your cup of coffee, watch this right before you head to work, maybe listen to it on the way to work. Be safe driving if you do. But that's all I have for the podcast. I can put a link to our podcast in the bottom of this.
That would be great. And I've also got I have 2 animations done, so just finalizing those. They're going to go up on YouTube and on the site as well, which is where you're narrating 2 book reviews we've done. So Elemental Workplace by Neil Usher and The Employee Experience by Jacob Morgan. So they'll be going up over the next week or 2. So I'll be excited to see another way that open source is bringing content to the audience, and hopefully we get good responses, and depending on how they go, we'll continue to do that. But I just think it's a really nice way of trying something different to try and capture how people view and consume content. So should be fun.
Well, I know it was fun reading it, so hopefully everyone enjoys watching it as well. That being the case, if you want to know when it comes out, like and subscribe down here underneath YouTube. There should be links to Open Source Workplace as well if you want to see the content there. Check out other articles that I've read or narrated on Open Source Workplace or our podcast, link in the description. And thank you very much for joining us again here on this Monday for us, Wednesday to you. Like, share, subscribe on all your social media outlets, and we'll see you next week.